So one of the things we always do at the World Bank is we do two things. One is we look at events and distinguish them from trends. And so when we look at trends, it's quite clear that the global trade is being renegotiated currently. So everybody in development at the moment is paying close attention to the bilateral negotiations that are taking place. But longer term, for regions such as the Africa region, I expect that all of the MDBs, the World Bank, the African Development Bank, will be putting a lot of resources and effort in strengthening the Continental Free Trade Agreement. Because the more Africans trade with each other, the easier it will be to grow their economies. So I must stress that at the moment I am on leave from the World Bank to campaign for the African Development Bank presidency. But I am confident that my colleagues at the World Bank are spending a lot of time during the spring meetings, meeting with ministers of finance, ministers of trade, to understand how they are interpreting it. Keep in mind that the World Bank and the MDBs, their primary role is to support governments, and that's what they've been doing. I have been in development for over 25 years, and during that period I've worked in Africa, I've worked in Asia, I've worked everywhere else. There comes a point in your life when you want to devote 100% of your efforts to the continent of your birth. And one of the worries I have is that despite global growth, far too many Africans are being left behind. Communities are crying for jobs. Our people are crying for access to basic services. I feel confidently that the skills I have learned working at the World Bank are skills that I can transfer to the African Development Bank, political skills, technical skills, operational skills, to really focus on getting the engine of African growth running fast and furious. So when it comes to the immediate shocks, we all go through the same process. If I can focus on the recent reductions in global aid, for example, in the health sector, of course the immediate impact is significant. I grew up in Zambia that was devastated by the HIV/AIDS pandemic. PEPFAR did amazing things to save lives. So of course when these decisions are being made, the first response is one of shock, one of pain, but the immediate second feeling is, well, this may be an opportunity for us to rethink how we finance health on the continent. There are certain things such as health and education that must be treated the same way we treat defense. These are supposed to be on our books. The transition from an aid-dependent development model to a private sector development model is a transition that started over 5 years ago. And I think the recent decisions have accelerated that process, and personally I welcome that transition. So one of the things that the current president at the World Bank, Ajay Banga, did when he came in was really emphasize the importance of efficiency and effectiveness. He has always said, development delayed is development denied. And so we have completely overhauled the budgeting process. It used to be a 9-month process, it's a 3-month process now. The length of the documentation has been eased. But all of these are intended to make sure we're serving our clients well. It's this type of experience that I'm keen to transfer to the African Development Bank and make sure that all MDBs, whether it's the World Bank, whether it's the African Development Bank, we are working much more effectively. That's the only way in which we can deliver aid in an environment where it's the private sector-led model that is making the difference. I couldn't disagree more. I grew up in Zambia where we went through a structural adjustment period, which was painful. These are reforms that the World Bank and the IMF were involved in. So when I joined the bank, I had a healthy degree of skepticism about this institution. But having spent as much time as I have been blown away by the quality of debate, the willingness to reform, the willingness to learn and operate differently. People pay attention to the days of the spring meetings. What is often overlooked is that prior to these meetings, there's a lot of discussion taking place between the World Bank and the individual countries, discussions between individual countries, so that when they come here, we're discussing consequential things. How do you grow jobs for 1 billion people on the continent? How do you deliver energy in Africa where we've got 600 million people without energy? M300, which is a partnership between the World Bank and the African Development Bank, probably came out from meetings such as this one. So the innovations that come out from these discussions are long-lasting. They don't hit the headlines right away, but I guarantee you the benefits is meaningful, it is substantial, and it affects a lot of lives, and that's why I'm here. During this week, I've met with ministers of finance of a large number of countries, sharing my vision about the African Development Bank. The implications of our discussions, I hope, will last throughout the tenure of my presidency if I am successful. So I can understand why people would look at that and see think there is disruption. But in my field, in development, when I look back the last 20 years, we've had periods where people question the development model. Think about the Washington Consensus, when that was being discussed aggressively. Think about the World Trade Organization, when that was being... This is exactly the same thing. So I welcome the discussion. I would rather have somebody tell me exactly what they think. And this is what you're hearing from this administration. And I think the bilateral discussions that are taking place, as difficult as they may be for some countries, I remain confident that the arc of humanity when it comes to development always points upwards. We may land in a place that's better off, it will be different, and the key thing, as I said when I started this conversation, is not to look at the individual announcements, but look at the trend. The trend away from an aid-based model to a private sector-led model is a good one. The trend towards greater trade within regional blocks is a good one. The focus on private sector-led growth is a good one. The path there may be challenging, but the destination, I am always an optimist, especially for Africa. I think when I think about the fact that we've got 60% of the world's arable land, food security, we've got the largest population of young people on the continent, that's job security. When I think about the fact we have signed the largest trade agreement in the world, our focus should be on implementing it and making sure that we're growing our economy. For all of those reasons, despite what it may sound disruptive in the news, I remain very optimistic.